Maria Mouton, a historical figure known for being the first and only white woman in South Africa to be executed in the Cape slavery era during the 18th century. My upbringing was defined by tragedy as my parents and I fled religious persecution in Belgium. We settled in Middelburg, Zeeland, a region that forms part of present-day Netherlands, and shortly after, we arrived at the Cape as emigrants. My mother died at the Cape and my father remarried. I guess you could say, this was where my life changed drastically. I was 16 years old when I married Frans Joost, a man 20 years old my senior. Frans was a dashing and hardworking Dutch burgher with good business prospects. In him, I saw a promising future which I was sure would secure my livelihood. During our marriage, we lived in a remote area of the Cape Colony, where farming was a difficult and demanding task. There, we owned 2 slaves, Titus of Bengal and Fortune of Angola, who worked alongside us. Unfortunately, my marriage with Frans was marred by domestic strife, and I felt neglected and unappreciated by him. One of the reasons that particularly bothered me was his failure to buy me new clothing throughout our 9 years of marriage. Although this may seem strange and trivial, I must make it known that I lived in an era where rank, class, and status were of utmost importance. A man's wife was usually at the forefront of such judgment. Frans rarely entertained my yearnings for romance, and this drove me into a lifestyle which ultimately led to my death and the history of which I am today known for. During this time, I formed an adulterous relationship with Titus, who was of a different race. We lived together in secret, and I began to feel more connected to him than to my own husband. In a moment of anger, I approached Peter, a runaway slave who once had a grudge against Frans, and I asked him to kill my husband. When Peter refused, Titus then offered to carry out the deed himself. On a fateful day, an argument between Frans and I escalated, and he chased me out of the house. Titus seized the opportunity and shot Frans, injuring him. Fortune, in an attempt to assist his friend Titus, then delivered the fatal blows that ended Frans's life. In an effort to cover up the crime, we hid the body and tried to maintain the illusion that Frans was still alive. However, suspicion grew among the neighbors when they discovered my intimate relationship with Titus. Sadly, Peter's capture and subsequent confession further solidified the case against us. We were subjected to torture to extract confessions, and eventually, the truth came to light. The court sentenced all 4 of us, myself, Titus, Fortune, and Peter, to death. The punishments, as expected, were gruesome, as I was half strangled, scorched, and then fully strangled to death. My body was displayed publicly until it disintegrated. Titus, on the hand, was impaled alive. While white men could engage in adulterous relationships with female slaves, white women were held to a higher standard and faced severe consequences for their actions. And so my story serves as a reminder of the social structures, prejudices, and inequalities that existed in the Cape Colony during the 18th century. It allows us to peek into the past and reflect on the injustices of a bygone era. A luta continua to the sons and daughters of modern South Africa.